Hi everybody! About a year ago, I made a video talking about how much money I made in 1 year on Depop and basically kind of just like went through my whole experience of spending 1 year selling clothes on Depop. So now that it's been a whole year later, I've now spent 2 years on Depop. It's basically my 2-year Depop anniversary, you could say. And I'm happy to say that within this past year, I was able to triple my yearly sales from the previous year. So in my first year on Depop, I grossed about $1,300. So this is how much money I made before all of my expenses, all the Depop fees, all the shipping fees. And now as my second year has come to a close, I ended up grossing $4,100. So that's basically triple how much I made in my first year. So how did I do that? There are basically 5 things that I did differently and changed up a little bit about my shop that I think were the 5 most important reasons for having an increase in sales. When I started my Depop, it was kind of just for fun and kind of just a hobby, but I realized I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a really fun and good way to make money. So in my second year, I started to take things a lot more seriously. So the first thing that I did that I think made a really big difference, is probably one of the most important changes I made, was I started cross-listing. Cross-listing is basically when you list an item on multiple platforms. So in my first year, I was basically only listing on Depop. So I really only had like one kind of audience that I was selling to. So I always heard about Poshmark and I knew it was a thing. So I figured I might as well like give it a try, see what it's all about. And I started to post a few things on my Poshmark just to kind of like test it out. And honestly, I was super surprised at how well Poshmark was performing. I ended up eventually listing all my Depop inventory onto my Poshmark as well, and that definitely made a major difference. I was noticing stuff that I had on my Depop for a long time started to sell pretty quickly on Poshmark. So the 2 apps definitely have 2 different audiences, and if you have clothing that suits both, I would definitely recommend listing on both platforms because it's just kind of giving you, I would say, double the amount of chances of selling things. It obviously takes a little bit more work because, you know, posting things takes time, and you definitely need to make sure that you're active on both, and if you sell something on one platform, you make sure to delete it or list it as not for sale on the other, just so that, you know, it doesn't get sold twice accidentally. So that's never happened to me. Most of my stuff takes a little bit of time to sell, so that has never really been a problem for me. So if you are watching this video and you only sell on one of these platforms, I would highly recommend you cross-list both. And another reason I like doing this is because I can kind of keep Depop as my more curated and, you know, only sell certain things that kind of fit that aesthetic. And then Poshmark, I can just kind of throw everything up there because I feel like Poshmark's a little bit different in the way that your store doesn't necessarily have to have a vibe or like an aesthetic. So I can kind of reach both markets but still have like my cool Depop shop. And I would say it's a pretty even split between how many sales I make on Depop versus how many I make on Poshmark. So selling on both has definitely been a direct reason that my sales have increased. So the next thing that I did differently that is also extremely important, probably the most important thing to take away from this video, is in my second year on Depop, I had way more items listed, I had way more inventory. And this one may sound obvious, but you kind of need to be constantly bringing in new items, and you just need to have a big selection in order for things to start selling at more of like a steady rate. I mean, if your business model is that you can do one big drop and sell out and then move on to the next drop, like that's great. If that works for you, like that's really amazing. But I think realistically, for the majority of us, it's really hard to make these quick sales. So we just need time for our inventory to sit and become discovered in order to make sales. That's why you kind of need a steady stream of inventory coming in. And I've said this many times before, but the more inventory you have, the greater chance that a certain amount of items are going to sell. The less items you have to sell, the less likely someone's going to buy something from your shop. I kind of imagine it like a snowball effect where you have to just like really keep that ball rolling, and in order to do that is like bringing more inventory in, giving it time to sit, and then, you know, slowly you're gonna start selling more and more. So yeah, in my second year on Depop, I had a lot more inventory, and, you know, more inventory equals more sales. So that was a really big reason why I made more money this past year. So the third thing that I changed in my second year is I started charging a little bit more for my items. So I think in the beginning, what happens a lot is, you know, you want to get your shop going, you want to get it started, you want to start making some sales, so you list everything for very, very cheap. And that can be great if you just want to get rid of stuff, but if this is an actual business that you're trying to run, you obviously, like, you need to make money. So yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I made in my first year, I was just listing my items for way too low, and my profit margins were super, super small. Oftentimes too, because I was really new at shipping and everything, sometimes I was even like losing money on items, so that was not good. So in my second year, I really focused on listing my items for a little bit higher, making sure that I really was covering those shipping costs, and really kind of like doing more calculations before in order to make sure I would be happy with my ending net profit margin. The higher you price your item, the longer it will take to sell, but I think in most cases it's worth to wait a little bit extra time to make a little bit more money. The fourth thing that I changed and did differently in my second year on Depop was that I was a lot more active on the apps. So in my first year, I knew about reposting and like refreshing your posts, and I would kind of do it like whenever I would think about it, so maybe like once a week or like a few times a week, and that was fine. But I think you need to be active every single day if you want to make constant sales. So in my second year, I focused a lot more on being active on both Depop and Poshmark. I repost all my listings every single day. I really made sure to be on top of that, because that does truly make a difference. Like, you can directly see, like, once you've finished reposting everything, you can see the likes come in, and you know that you're getting fresh eyes on your items. So that's really important in order to get your items more exposed. And on Poshmark, I started sending a lot more offers to likers. So whenever somebody likes my post, I immediately will send them like a 10% discount and like a shipping discount. And this is definitely like very tedious, and it's something you kind of always have to be thinking about on a daily basis. Like, you're kind of constantly checking both apps just to see like what's going on. But since I've been doing this, I've definitely noticed a big change, and it's definitely led to an increase in my sales. I would say a lot of my Poshmark sales come from me sending people offers, so that especially is really important. And then finally, the last thing, number 5, that I did differently in my second year was I started my YouTube channel. I honestly do think that it has made a difference in my sales. You know, there actually have been a couple people who have reached out to me and said, you know, they found my Depop from my YouTube channel, and there's been a few people who've actually made purchases who have discovered me through YouTube. Even the people who didn't necessarily buy something from my store, I've definitely gotten a lot more followers and a lot more interactions and likes on my pages, which I think definitely like indirectly has just brought more traffic to my store, and therefore have over time increased my sales. So I'm not saying like you should have to like make a YouTube channel or anything, but I think you should definitely branch out onto like other social medias like Instagram, for example, and like make a page or something for your Depop shop. I actually just recently created an Instagram for my Depop shop. It's at Alicia Thrifts, so you can follow that if you want. But I do think it's really important to bring in traffic from other platforms, because Depop is kind of just on its own thing, and you're not really going to find these items unless you're on Depop. So branching out to other platforms and bringing people in from those platforms, I do think is really important, especially if you're taking this more seriously, and I do think it has had an effect on my sales. So those are all the things that I did differently in my second year on Depop and Poshmark. So I'm now basically going into my third year, and I'll definitely be continuing to do all of this stuff that I mentioned. But I think the one thing I'll be working on the most is getting more inventory, because I think that's going to have the biggest effect on my sales. And not only getting more inventory, but trying to post more consistently. Typically, I will do like one huge drop of clothes at a time and then not post for like a long time. So I'm gonna try to see if posting more consistently helps me be more active on the apps and see if that makes a difference. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any tips that you think is really important that I missed, definitely leave them below. And if you have a Depop or Poshmark, definitely leave it in the comments below and I'll give you a follow. We can all follow each other. Just leave your @ and not like a link, because YouTube just like automatically deletes any comments with a link, which is really annoying because I think it's spam. So just make sure you're not leaving links, you're just leaving your @. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.